Live. Everywhere. On netrootsradio.com. David Waldman. Kagro. In the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, July 2nd, 2026. Time for yet another one of these shows. It's extremely hot here in the East Coast. I guess the heat dome that had been plaguing everybody else has now gotten our way, and, well, you know, that's to be expected. It is July, after all, but it's July 2nd, and July 4th is coming, and it's going to be well over 100 degrees, I think, for the July 4th celebrations. So everything lining up perfectly. All the people who aren't at the Great American State Fair or whatever it's supposed to be, definitely not coming now as a result of the excessive heat. But there was nobody there to begin with and no reason to get down there, and less opportunity to do so. Now, as a matter of fact, I happened to see just before going on the air here, whose post am I reading? Bill Kuchman, I guess. The founder of the omnicosm.com. This is where you get to I get to plug your stuff when you put it in your bio. But Bill makes the observation that the Park Service, I guess he's got himself a Washington Post article on the subject. The Washington Post says that the Park Service, the National Park Service, in a separate document, separate from what, I don't know, but said, essentially, people, ready for this one? This is the Trump Park Service. People should wear an N95 mask when outdoors because the air quality is so bad because of the excessive heat, and should remain indoors as much as possible during and after the fireworks show. This is the fireworks show they're talking about. So, one, remain indoors during the fireworks. I guess you got to stay with your dog and keep them calm during the 850,000 shells that will reportedly be set off in the 40-minute display. But also, yeah, people are beginning to worry. 100 and something degrees. You know, it's a tidal swamp. There's going to be a gigantic cloud of fireworks smoke. I believe in 2019 they had this issue too, that people were bringing this up, that just the smoke with no wind just settled over D.C. and people couldn't see the second half of the fireworks show from the smoke of the first half. So this really ought to be something. It's interesting that the guidance is, of course, to wear an N95 mask. This, of course, being the second administration of the guy who said you shouldn't be wearing any kind of mask ever for any reason until he almost died from COVID-19. And then he famously ripped off his mask because it smeared his makeup, and told everybody it was all fake and they should eat horse medicine. But anyway, he's president again. I don't know if you know about this. Very hot, as I said. Yesterday was a great day for the power to go out. I should have gone over to Greg's house. He's got a generator. But we don't. And somebody, I guess I should be wondering what happened to the guy. Somebody smashed their car into a utility pole in the area and just took out the neighborhood and a couple other neighborhoods to boot. And right about, I don't know, 3, 4 o'clock yesterday. So it was 100 degrees. So everybody's air conditioning went out. And by the way, it also stayed out literally until 1 minute after the World Cup game. So I was looking forward. I've been watching all the offerings and being a good fan and watching every other country. And I was thinking, finally, we'll have a nice U.S. game. The last one wasn't, as great. There wasn't as much on the line. They played a lot of subs, etc. Then they lost the game. So this would be a fun thing to watch. So I was, kind of waiting for it. And no, we tried going to a neighborhood sports bar to watch the thing. But guess what? It was so crowded because everybody in the neighborhood had no power. This one was across the main street there, so they had power. You have to smash into a utility pole on the other side in order to take that out. I hope the guy's okay, although I have to say there's probably a whole neighborhood saying, you know what, I hope he's a little knocked up because, not knocked up, because then you wouldn't let him in the country, but not banged up a bit. What are you doing smashing into it? There was really very few of these utility poles in the area that he could have smashed into. But anyway, I hope he's okay. We missed the World Cup game. That sucks. We won. That's nice. The sports bar's literally too crowded to get into. And then I turned my attention to, wow, the refrigerators have been off for quite a while now. Time to go buy ice. But of course, any store in the neighborhood was out of ice. Had to leave the neighborhood. It was quite a trial. And then, of course, when the electricity went back on, there was a lot of work to do to bring the house back down to temperature. The refrigerators had to work hard. So we're chewing up power like a data center at this point. And, hey, looking forward to another 100-degree plus day. Already feels like 96 outside at 9 in the morning. You know, all of the good things that you're looking forward to in the summer. All right, time now, though, to open the door and bring Greg in. Where's my, how come I can never remember where I got a new note about Imperial Margarine, though. So, first of all, we'll play, you don't say anything until the fanfare goes. Oh, I'm just kidding.
Well, just go ahead and play it.
Yeah, all right. Well, and Scott sent me a bunch too. But let's see. Although I now remember that it's ADK Adirondack erratic, I still love to say Adkeratic because all the letters are jammed in. Sent a note. Where is this? Oh, it's been buried in other morning traffic. But let's see. Grabbed the Blue Sky post of Dan Sir, C-E-R, Dan Sir in the dark. I don't know. Anyway, he just notes, real butter doesn't give an F, we'll say, whether you believe in it or not. So that's kind of interesting. That's a good point. Yeah. So I say go with the real butter at that point. Also, I have to go and find, Scott sent me a bunch of patriotic.
The Iowa State Fair should be soon, so we get the butter count.
Oh, yeah, right.
And that account will certainly have something to say about butter.
Yeah. By the way, when is Trump going to demand a single-day presidential primary in every state? Why do we keep having to do them on different days? That's obvious fraud. I'm not sure why he doesn't believe that, but I don't think I'm going to find my way through his brain at this point. All right. Well, hot where you are, too, but not quite as bad.
Not as hot as you guys.
Yeah,
but,
well, that's
we're
the way it
a bit
goes.
north, but still pretty warm. There's news out. I guess tomorrow's sort of a semi-holiday because of the July 4th weekend. So we got the jobs report today, not tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Are they closing the federal government tomorrow? They're going to blow it up with 850,000
federal government's always
explosives.
closed. U.S. economy added 57,000 jobs in June, less than expected. Unemployment rate at 4.2, which is okay, but less jobs. And, the turnaround that we're expecting, it's not here yet. We're running out of time, guys. There's an election coming. So, if Trump just makes peace in the Middle East and gas prices come down and this and that, and a bunch of nonsense.
Yeah, well, he is occasionally posting on his thing, Truth Social, that he's going to order prices to come down. I like this. He's threatening the energy I guess they call themselves energy companies now, gas companies. You need to get your prices. I'm thinking around $2.50 a gallon, or else there'll be consequences. So
other presidents like Nixon did what we call jawboning, which is to say to go argue with the companies. We're going to do jaw breaking. That's the way we do things around here.
He'd like to think so.
Nice company. Be ashamed if something happened to it, you know?
Yeah, actually be a matter of course if something happened to it. Unless I bought shares in it, that's possible. That's kind of the way he works. All right.
So I want to talk a little bit about polling, and I want to talk about the New York Times poll, which is an excellent, superb, grade A+, one of the best in the country polls. They changed their methodology recently, which is really kind of interesting, the way that they go ahead and do their algorithm. And based on the way that they changed the algorithm from the last time that they polled, they're making some of these states look a little bit more red than they were, like Ohio.
That will make Iowa, Trump happy. Might not be true.
Right. So, again, a reminder, in their polling, they polled 6 Senate races, important ones. North Carolina was a blowout for Roy Cooper, 50-43. 7 points in North Carolina is big. Yeah. Maine is Plattner 49, Collins 47, and despite the fact that Plattner leads in this poll, the whole discussion is about how he's a terrible candidate and he's at risk, and Collins is Collins and this, that, and everything else. It's too close to call.
Okay.
Right. My point about this segment is going to be about how the New York Times poll sets the narrative. But
It does.
that narrative, if you look at the numbers, is exactly what the headline says. Control of the Senate is up for grabs, not Democrats are losing.
All right.
They'll go on to explain why Democrats are losing, because they always do.
Oh, that's what they enjoy that more than anything.
All right. Texas, Tallarico 47, Paxton 47. Alaska, Murray Peltola 45, Dan Sullivan 47. More to say about exactly why that came out the way it did. Josh Turek 46, Ashley Hinson 48 in Iowa, and Sherrod Brown 47. John Husted in Ohio 4750, one of the states that got a little more red based on their numbers. But it's a good poll, and those are ballpark where we are. A new set of polls came out, and it's Fox, excellent pollster, won't change the narrative the way the New York Times will.
Okay.
In that one,
I guess
John Ossoff is ahead by a lot, 56-43 over Mike Collins for Senate, and Keisha Lance Bottoms 52-47 over Rick Jackson for governor, with a lot of undecideds. And the reason that Keisha Lance Bottoms leading is important is because if Ossoff goes ahead and wins his election, then decides to run for president in 2028, and he's an excellent candidate, then he's got to have a Democratic governor to appoint his successor, or he can't leave. It's like, Queen is blocking your move.
Yeah. So living in the phantom zone.
Yeah, so far, so all of that's good. So again, the other poll that came out from Fox is Iowa.
All right.
And this one, Josh Turek's up by 4, 50-46.
Fox.
Edge that's within the poll's margin of error. In other words, both polls say the same thing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's true. I guess so.
Which is to say, you can't really tell who's ahead. But that's not how narrative works. Let me give you an example of how narrative works. It was funny because Kyle Condict, who is over at Larry Sabato shop, the Crystal Ball, New York Times released aggregated results among the 6 Senate Democratic target states they polled. In other words, they put them all together. Trump was at 43% approval across these states,
I see,
which are clearly red states, and that's not good for Republicans.
All right.
But the Republican Senate candidates were at 47%, narrowly ahead.
Okay.
Now, this is also reminiscent of 2022 when Democrats held up well enough among Biden somewhat disapprovers. I somewhat disapprove of Biden, but I still vote for the Democrat.
Yeah, okay.
And the New York Times crosstab on this is sort of opaque, but it looks like the Senate vote choice among Trump somewhat disapprovers, which is only 6% of voters, is split.
Okay.
So Democrats aren't getting most of these somewhat disapprovers. Whereas Biden somewhat disapprovers did vote for Democrats. It's not clear what Trump somewhat disapprovers are going to do. But Dave Weigel looked at that and said, there are midterms where this holds up until October. Then the bottom falls out for the president's party. And that's like a known thing.
Okay.
And there are midterms where it doesn't. And so we have no idea what's coming.
Well,
but I think that's the proper, that is the proper analysis, rather than, look at those New York Times polls showing we've hit our peak and we can't get over the top of the mountain. That's not what it shows.
That isn't it. And you certainly can't afford to think that way about it, especially with so much time left. But really, don't ever think that way. And I guess past performance can't be a prediction of the future, or what is it? I don't know, but it doesn't matter. The point is, nobody knows what will happen, and the polls are not trying to say that they do. They're just telling you what people say now. There's a lot of undecideds, and they don't make up their mind until after the summer, basically, is what this comes down to. Yeah. So Nate Cohn wrote a companion piece for the Times yesterday helping to set this narrative. Republicans' home field edge for Senate seems just enough for now. Democratic candidates are generally popular, but retaking the Senate remains a big challenge. Well, that's true. But they have some really funny details in this, which are kind of interesting. First of all, he points out Republicans haven't nominated deeply flawed candidates. More voters have a favorable and unfavorable impression of the Republican Senators Sullivan in Alaska, Husted in Ohio, and Hinson in Iowa. They may not be powerhouses, but they're candidates who would be expected to prevail
even in this political environment. In other words, what he's saying is basically everything shifted 8 points to the Democrats, and these are 9-point leads. So we're close, but not quite there, he says. But there's always reason to be cautious, for example.
Certainly.
Let's take Alaska. The strangest issue is Alaska's primary ballot, which features 2 Dans Sullivan.
Right. That we won't get over that.
Yeah. One is the U.S. Senator. The second is a retired teacher. If the second Sullivan advances to the general election in Alaska's unusual top 4 system, in which the top 4 primary vote getters, regardless of party, then Republicans fear he'll confuse voters and draw support from the senator in November. But in the poll, the other Mr. Sullivan may have had the opposite effect. The poll asked only about Ms. Peltola versus Sullivan, and a handful of Democrats may have expressed support for him or for their own amusement or confused the survey interviewer. For example, this is just really funny. One Democratic respondent supported Democrats on all questions, including expressing very favorable opinion of Ms. Peltola, but they supported Mr. Sullivan.
All right, yeah, but we don't. No,
when asked if they had a favorable view of Mr. Sullivan, they said, which one?
They are aware.
When asked the open-ended question about why they don't support Sullivan over Ms. Peltola, they said, I don't. Of course, 1 or 2 respondents wouldn't have affected the poll, but you get a bunch of those in a close race, and it could make a difference. So some respondents don't respond in a way to our surveyors who are doing check boxes that allow the surveyor to really get an idea of what the poll people are saying. I love when they get into the little details like that. It's just one voter, but it's Alaska.
Yeah. Right.
And it's like, I support everything the Democrats do. I'm voting for Trump. Why? Because.
Yeah.
You know, okay, fine. There's always those voters. But a more conventional issue is undecided voters.
Yes.
At this early stage, a significant share of Peltola's strongest constituencies, Alaska Natives and the far north and west regions, which are very isolated, but she goes through all the time, were disproportionately likely to be undecided, with 17% of Alaska Natives, 20% of voters in the far north and west declining to express a preference. Ms. Peltola, who's an Alaska Native herself, led by 51-32 among Alaska Natives and 57-22 in the north and west. It's not a given that undecided voters, which is about 7% of the poll, will flock to Ms. Peltola. Mr. Trump appeared to fare relatively well with them. But it'll be interesting to see what happens when we poll Alaska next time.
Yes, I would say so.
Those undecideds are going to make the difference. And Mary Peltola runs a strong campaign. She's a good finisher. She's proven that. You know, her position is more or less statewide when she was in Congress, even as a House person because of the size of Alaska. North Carolina, in the new methodology, doesn't change all that much, but Iowa would have been a D+4 state. It's now an R+2 state in her new methodology. Ohio was a D+1 state in the old way and R+3 in the new way of doing it. The other states aren't really affected all that much.
All right.
So Ohio and Iowa were given a new Republican lean by rejiggering the methodology used in the poll, but it's a very good pollster, and they may well have been justified, so we'll see. So again, it's a very good poll, close races, that's the message. The narrative that, well, this shows that Democrats just simply can't overcome the mountain that they have to climb, you know, that's not so. Fox polls don't support that. Their own methodology doesn't support that, so don't read that much into it. There's a lot more that's going to happen between now and November.
All right. Well, there's plenty of months to have it happen in. This is one of them, though. Not a lot usually happening, though, in these hot, stagnant summer months. But
right. As a matter of fact, yesterday, Wednesday, relatively quiet day as far as politics go. So, I don't have a ton of things to tell you in the second half hour.
Oh, there are things.
I'm just warning you. You might have to come up with some of these things. But I do have something I want to talk about with you. We talked about it off the show yesterday, but didn't get to it.
Oh.
Interesting story about the Pope.
All stories about this Pope are interesting.
Yeah, especially ones that aren't sports stories.
Yeah, although those are good too.
Well, I haven't seen any that aren't sports stories, but this one was not a sports story.
That's why I must be liking them so much. Yes.
Yeah. Pope begs breakaway traditionalist group to back off plan to consecrate its own bishops.
Just make
It's
your
from
own.
NBC News. Under church law, the consecrations are a schismatic act and incur automatic excommunication for the 4 bishops and any bishop administering the consecration. So he told this group, it's a
society of some kind.
Society of St. Pius X.
Yes. I don't know who that was, but
And
he's got a Wikipedia
he said,
entry. You're hearing
Leo
more and
wrote
more
in a
about
letter,
him.
I plead with you and ask you with all my heart, please turn back. Now, this had happened
nice.
in the past.
It's gentle.
1988.
Oh.
Founder Archbishop Marcel Lefebvre consecrated 4 bishops without papal consent. They were immediately excommunicated.
They were. He wasn't? I guess
so. So there's a precedent for what happened, and guess what? They went ahead and did the consecration, and then breakaway Catholic group excommunicated after defying warnings from Pope Leo. So that happened yesterday. Did
they kick the cardinal out? Was the cardinal guy still alive? I don't know.
I thought they had kicked him out already.
Maybe. It sounded like you said in '88 he consecrated 4 new bishops. They
all got
excommunicated the
kicked out.
bishops, but not the cardinal.
No, he got kicked out too.
Okay.
Society of St. Pius X, an ultra-traditionalist group, went ahead with the ordinations.
Great.
So now it added the Vatican an explanatory note that priests belonging to the society and any lay members who formally adhere, quote unquote, to the group are also in schism. They're also excommunicated.
All right.
So they're excommunicating everybody who is in that society now. All clerics and the lay faithful not formally follow this society, they will automatically incur excommunication.
Oh, no. I mean,
so he's really trying
bad.
to shut it down completely.
I guess so. You don't hear a lot about excommunication these days, usually.
Right. And in 1988, he excommunicated the bishops, the current pope at the time.
Yeah.
This pope not only excommunicates the bishops, but anybody associated with the society.
All right. That sounds like the thing to do, I guess. See if you can. I mean, I don't know what happens to them, and I guess they keep going on, and I guess the people who are going to church where these guys lead mass are just going to keep going, and I mean, you don't tell them they can't be religious anymore. They just have to.
In 1988, Pope Francis allowed the society to administer sacraments of marriage and confession. Pope Leo said, nope.
Okay.
Can't do that. Can't do it. It's not official Catholic stuff if you do it.
All right. Now, 88, it was...
We welcome anybody who leaves that society
John
and comes
Paul,
back to the church, but no, you're out.
Okay. I'm trying to remember how long ago it was that John Paul was Pope. That would be 88, right? He would have been Pope in 88.
I don't know.
Yeah, 1978 until 2005. So, he was he was one of the top popes, rated very highly, and
he was Pope for a while.
Yeah, Pius X. I just looked it up just to find out. Pope in the early 1900s, 1903 to 1914. I'm sure there's a reason why they chose him, not just the X, although that's pretty cool. Maybe it was Elon Musk said. Yeah, it's Pope Pius X, not the 10th. Born Giuseppe Melchiorre Sarto, if you were interested in that. I don't know. I'm sorely tempted to look it up just to follow that rabbit hole, but I mean, I don't know. I never heard of this society, and I'm never going to hear about it again, but it is always interesting when excommunication comes back into the picture.
Right.
Briefly.
Now, speaking of odd little things.
Yes.
There was an election on Tuesday, which we covered on Wednesday, but wasn't complete.
Fraud.
We talked about the fact that since Colorado's a mail-in state, close elections mean that you may not find out the results for a little while.
Yeah.
Well, it turns out that we discussed that Phil Weiser, and that is the proper pronunciation of his name, beat Michael Bennet and will be the Democratic candidate for governor and the Democratic governor. But the person that they run against was undecided.
about whether to
And
run
we
or not.
highlighted two people that were running, Barb Kirkmeyer on the Republican side,
Yes.
who is the normie Republican, and Victor Marx, who's something of a nutcase. And yesterday when we reported the results, Kirkmeyer was slightly ahead. Now Marx is ahead by 2,000 votes.
Fraud.
With 92% of the vote in. Again, more to come because we have to wait on the mail-in, so it's not clear, who's going to wind up winning. Right now, Victor Marx has the lead. But I sent you this story from New York Intelligencer. Mm-hmm. Possible GOP governor pick won't say how many people he's killed.
Right. Yeah.
Because he is a little different.
Okay.
Today's Democratic primaries in Colorado ended with several notable results for the left. Democratic Socialist Malat Quiros defeated veteran Representative Diana Delgatti. We covered that yesterday. Moderate Senator Michael Bennet lost. Hickenlooper won. But there was drama on the other side, too. The Republican nomination for governor is still too close to call, and one of the two candidates who might win, Victor Marx, is a bit unorthodox. As of Friday morning, Kirkmeyer holds a slim lead, except right now I just checked and Marx has the lead. It's currently a difference of less than 2,000 votes either way. Prior to her time in the state legislature, Kirkmeyer served as Well County Commissioner, and on the campaign website, Marx describes experiencing a childhood adversity, including abuse, before settling on the right path. He should run for Senate in Maine. Before settling on the right path through his faith and decision to join the Marine Corps. He's referred to himself as a high-risk humanitarian, founding All Things Possible Ministries, a nonprofit that describes its mission: we exist to set captives free physically, emotionally, and spiritually.
I don't know.
We're going to talk about this after the break, but what?
Yeah, I don't know. I never know whether they're talking, exactly? Weird evangelical psychobabble, or whether they're extremely dangerous to themselves and others and ought to be committed involuntarily.
Well, the point, I think, to emphasize, he's a Marine veteran, but he never saw combat.
Hi, Kagro in the Morning listeners. This is Rebecca Romans, longtime listener and longtime supporter of the show. Do you love your non-corporatized, completely independent, commercial-free Kagro in the Morning show? Do you stand out among the crowd at the office water cooler when discussing current events because of all the up-to-the-minute news you've been brought by David Waldman? Then it's time to give back a little. David relies on contributions from listeners like you and me to keep this show on the air. Patreon.com is among the easiest ways to make secure recurring monthly donations to support the show. Patreon.com/KagroX will bring you straight to his donation page, where you can sign up for any convenient tier you like. A mere $5 a month. You'll never miss it. Works out to about 25 cents a show. That means that David is making 12.5 cents an hour, which, by coincidence, is exactly what the GOP wants to lower the federal minimum wage to. Once again, David is ahead of the curve. If Patreon.com doesn't sound like your kind of thing, there's always PayPal, or even the Square Cash app. Any way you choose to donate, please choose to donate. And thank you on behalf of David and the rest of us listeners. Thank you very much.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We're scrounging around for tidbits just to spice up the show today. I just wanted to let everybody know. We asked about this a little while ago. The Qatari plane that was gifted in a bribe to Trump to convert into Air Force One, but only for a little while, because then it would just be converted into a personal plane that he could park in his hotel that he has planned for his giant mausoleum or whatever when he finally leaves office, if that ever happens. Anyway, I was just wondering, hey, whatever happened to that whole refurbishing thing? Because we weren't hearing very much about it, and I wondered whether it was one of those things he forgot about, and maybe
it got refurbished,
never did
and we paid for
or
it,
something like that. Yeah, I figured we'd lose some money on the deal, and we did. But I was sort of curious as to whether the Air Force would do the Mel Brooks say yes and don't do it. Just, we're working on it. We're almost there. But they actually sort of delivered that thing more or less on the timetable that they agreed to, which is astonishing.
Right, at twice the price.
Oh, yeah, as with everything, just like the ballroom. It is the 19th thing that he said wouldn't cost the taxpayers a dime and would be a huge savings to them that actually cost them twice as much as was planned. Anyway, maiden flight yesterday as Air Force One with Trump aboard, and apparently it took off and landed safely. In
the reflecting pool.
Yeah, Captain Sullivan landed it in the reflecting pool. Remarkable show of skill. I don't know where he went, but he gave a speech, and I guess I don't know anything about it because Aaron Rupar hasn't gotten to that yet. But he got to one, and he showed a clip, and I played the clip because you know what? I don't even either remember what the clip was of or what he said, or I might not ever have turned the sound up on it because the background, you know how he likes to. This is a presidential thing that they do all the time. They carefully plan the visuals of these speeches, and so he had as his background these members of the crowd. And I'm struggling to guess at what they might have been. They all looked like, and I guess this is my guess, they all looked like cavalry 19th century cavalry officer cosplayers. They were all wearing...
Yeah. But all of Trump's speeches, right? All of the actors there, whether it's a sheriff or whether it's a person of color, they all hold up signs that say, I am here for the visuals, called, 203-784-2600 to hire me.
Yeah, basically. I don't know. So I'm not certain what it was, but they all looked ridiculous. It was a bunch of extras from Dances with Wolves, the cavalry guys standing around in the background, and I don't even know what it was that he said, but it was, offensive and horrible, I'm sure, whatever it was. And he flew there on the brand new, they have to call it whatever he flies on, Air Force One, so I guess we're kind of stuck with it. Of course, we could always say, to hell with the rules, nothing matters, LOL YOLO, and just call it something else. But anyway, he's flying that thing, and everybody's stuck reporting when he's going to take it with him when he leaves. And by the way, I'm campaigning for Attorney General on the platform of I will seize that plane when he leaves the presidency. That is the property of the United States. We don't want it, but I don't want you to have it either. And everybody says, because he says he's taking it, there's no choice but to print newspaper stories that say he's taking it. And, the story should be, no, that's theft, and end of story, and let them deal with that. But I guess can't seem to convince the newspapers of this. I'm working on it. All right, that's one tidbit.
Yeah.
More?
Here's some other tidbits. For the first time,
yes,
Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, AOC, has endorsed somebody in Democratic primaries. She stayed clear of most of the controversy up until now.
Or is it surprising? She's quite, adept.
She's pretty savvy, yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But she just endorsed Abdul El Sayed in the Michigan Senate race, which I think is going to be August 4th, which I think is going to be the major important primary that's left.
Yes, there'll be all eyes on it now. Will the DSA carry the day? Yeah, okay. Good.
So I think that's kind of interesting.
It is interesting that she held out for that one. And, she's probably done some serious thinking with others about which ones of these races will my endorsement help versus hurt, and why don't we do the smart thing, whatever that may be. Or else she was just busy up until now. I would have endorsed you, but I was extremely busy. I don't know. All right. But that's interesting that she has stayed out of it. It's interesting that she stayed out of it by, at least publicly. My suspicion is that without making a public endorsement, there was some financial support behind the scenes, probably from her leadership pack. And, that's par for the course, too.
Well, again, to set the stage in Michigan.
All right.
Democrats have not fantastic candidates. Outside of El Sayed, who's running well. Yeah, so you have to say he's a good candidate because he's leading in all the polls. But Haley Stevens, the establishment choice, is boring.
Yes, right.
And Mallory McMorrow had previous, most scandals don't matter, but the one where she said she's really not enthralled with Michigan is hurting her.
Right. So the first one's boring, and the other one we say, no! What are you doing? How can you say that?
So El Sayed is going got the momentum, and Ocasio-Cortez is going with the flow. And she saw what happened with Zoran Mamdani and what happened with his endorsements, and so she's making a move.
All right.
Now, is it going to get the Democrats who are already in power, the incumbents, is it going to get them mad? Sure. Oh. Incumbents think that everybody should support incumbents. Now, in this particular case, it's an open seat, so she has a little leeway.
Yeah.
But it is a leadership challenge because Schumer is supporting Haley Stevens.
Uh-huh.
How big a deal is that? It remains to be seen. When you win, it papers over a lot of stuff.
Yes, that's true. Okay. Well, I don't know what to say about it, but okay, we wait and find out. Yeah, Michigan, not thrilling. Although now I'm thinking back to the thing you said about Alaska, and they're very interesting. What, 4-way, like a primary, the top 4 go on? Yeah. That's really something. I've seen. Yeah,
and then you have ranked choice voting, and so you might have 2 Dan Sullivans.
Crazy. Yeah, those Alaskans, they're so radical. I mean, they really are. 4 top 4 finishers, and then ranked choice voting. That's amazing for people who insist that they're, quite conservative, generally speaking. But yeah, I wonder. I'll see how that works out. I mean, it's funny that people find a way to foil it no matter what happens, right? Like they come up with the jungle primary that they use in California, and in the end, you're like, yeah, the system kind of sucks. We're at the on the cusp of having the race be between 2 Republicans. This is terrible. Top 2 finishers is a dumb way of doing it. And then, what if we did the top 4? Because then you're almost guaranteed to have someone from at least one from the other party. Oh, that is interesting. Although, again, in Alaska, well, that's like a significant portion of the population. Like if they did top 4, they should do top 4 finishers for state legislative races in New Hampshire. They're going to have to borrow people from Vermont to fill the ballot. But that's
you got to borrow people from Vermont to staff the legislature, because like everybody's there, everybody's in it, but some people are on vacation.
Yeah, so somebody has to. You
get some Vermonters that just stand in.
But yeah, so top 4, and then ranked choice voting, and then still, with all that, instead of 2, we'll do 4. Wow, yeah, that is wide open, and then we'll do ranked choice voting. Wow. Well, guess what? I will throw you a second Dan Sullivan and see how you like that. Like this, everybody has to find a way to ruin everything.
And then we have 20% undecideds, and so who's going to win this race? I don't know.
They'll probably change their rules and say, you know what? Undecided can be one of the 4, or none of the above. Top 4
that happens in Nevada. In Nevada, you get to vote for none of the above.
Right. That's true. They should throw it all together, though. And so we gave you 4 choices, and you still voted for none of the above. And that's just a guy who also named himself none of the above.
Yeah.
So that's a real Alaskan.
If there's 2 of them, there's nones of the above.
Nuns. All right. I have a whole sitcom in my head now. Okay.
All right. So here's another one of those strange stories you might not have come across. I just put it at the very, very end so you can look at it. This is from a couple of days ago. Trump backs MAHA, Make America Healthy Again, in heated, shocking Oval Office fight on pesticides.
Yeah. Okay,
Unexpected. There was an Oval Office meeting last week as a top agriculture lobbyist warned President Trump that an executive order calling for pest-killing alternatives would cost Trump support from farmers.
Okay.
Why it matters. The confrontation, which one attendee called shocking, exposed the sharp fault line in Trump's coalition. RFK Jr.'s MAHA movement is reducing conventional pesticides. Farming interests want to preserve them. Both sides see the debate as existential. MAHA argues pesticides are making Americans sick. Agricultural industry says restricting the use would raise food prices and cost farmers billions. So they came in for this signing ceremony for something or other, and it turns out that the farm people there started arguing with the cabinet officials, and it got really heated.
Okay. It's very hot now.
What does that mean? Trump had been widely expected to sign the order that afternoon. Suddenly wasn't so certain. And so I have to follow up and see whatever happened if Trump ever signed pesticide executive order.
Yeah, we don't know what he signs and what he doesn't. Okay. That is... I know that's causing some
We have
problems.
all these little fracturing stories.
Yeah. It's schisms everywhere. When are people going to be excommunicated from? They do get excommunicated from Trump world. John Cornyn, the Cheneys, the Cassidy, right? People who get tossed out in the primaries, and then of course, right, the entire Cheney family. So it does happen. There's a parallel. J.D. Vance angling for it himself. Apparently, he's the adult late Catholic convert. I mean, well, that's when people convert, when they're adults and they can make their own decisions. I guess that's true of everybody. And he's been active in disagreeing with the Pope, which is not a hugely Catholic thing to do, I don't think. And fighting about it, all of his decisions, and saying he's got everything wrong. And I'm curious though about this, whether there's any relationship between the people who just got communicated, because they have an American presence, and J.D. Vance and other like ultra Catholic, like old school Catholic converts. I don't know. He seems to be involving himself in this quite a bit, and he's also super unpopular.
Just as a follow-up, so after that big argument in the Oval Office, Trump did wind up signing it.
Okay.
And sort of twisted their arms to show up in a photo op. But part of the reason I wanted to highlight that is that there's all sorts of cracks and fractures under the surface that you don't quite see.
Yeah.
And whereas everybody's afraid to, if you're a Trump supporter, publicly break with him.
Yeah.
Under the surface, there's a lot of organizations who just aren't really into it. And again, the whole thing about the New York Times polling narrative and such has a lot to do with the undecideds, but also who's going to show up.
Yes.
Like the more unhappy you are with your side, the less likely you'll simply show up. Trump is not on the ballot. And, what happens after that?
No one knows. And we've been watching potential successors, like if we have like normal, regular type elections to decide who succeeds Donald Trump, watching people jockey for position. J.D. Vance spent a week or two insisting that he didn't have anything to do with the Iran war, and then they hung the whole thing on him, and now his focus is criticizing the Pope. I don't know what that's supposed to be. And Marco Rubio also thinks he's up for the job. And because we also have an alternative timeline going on, I believe Trump family members actually legitimately believe they might be entitled to the job too. We will have to see how that shakes out. I hope we never find out. There can't be any involvement from his kids. Jeez.
Anyway, that's what I got for today.
All right. That seems
kind
like
of
a
sleepy
of things.
summer. So that is to say yesterday. There's a lot going on otherwise, but yesterday, relatively speaking, didn't have as much going on.
All right. Well, plenty set to happen for today. I do note for the record, somewhere along the line I saw this, that I think Katie Fang, who we mentioned the other day, reminding everybody that the judge in her so far very successful case to try to press the Epstein files issue had set today as the deadline for Todd Blanche to answer all of these various interrogatories, to turn over the rest of the documents or produce reasons why, for valid reasons why he's not doing so. And that deadline is today. So far, no indication that they've actually done any work to meet that deadline. And I guess that's of a piece with the developments in the E. Jean Carroll case, in which the president's lawyers, Trump's lawyers, apparently agreed to some sort of stipulation whereby if the Supreme Court declined to take up his latest appeal, well, not his previous appeal, then he would say, all right, that'll be the end of it. If they don't take it up, then I'll pay you. And, of course, they didn't take it up, and he now says, I won't pay you. And, in fact, he made a request of her lawyers. Would you agree to one more such stipulation and just delay my having to pay you so that we can ask the Supreme Court to reconsider whether to take up the case they just said they wouldn't take up? I mean, you can ask, but, of course, she said no. But apparently the word from the Trump camp is, who's going to make me pay? I'm just not going to do it. And I guess we get to see how that plays out. I'm going to just, I'll take my case to the Supreme Court, and if I lose, then I'll just not listen to courts anymore. So that's something to keep an eye on a lazy Thursday. As I warn you of that. I'm doing you a service. This show, part of the show is for you, Greg.
Well, that's good.
Yes.
But with that, I'm going to take my leave, and then I'll be back. What's Monday?
I don't know. July something. I'm going to just play you this, by the way, as a fanfare for you to leave. This is something, this is what Scott sent me. Wow, and is it loud? And it has a picture of Ronald Reagan in it. A fanfare leading up to Grand Old Flag. Monday will be July 4, 5, 6th.
Yeah,
and,
so the formal holiday's tomorrow.
Yes. So we
but
get the day
if
off.
you live in Alaska, Monday, July 6th is an official paid state holiday.
Yeah? Like the one that the rest of us
They
are
want an
doing on Friday?
Independence Day that's like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday. They want a 4-day weekend.
Okay. I mean, sure. Why
we
not?
don't have that, but they have it.
The fish get the day? Are people going fishing? Are fish upset about this? I don't know. I asked Mary Peltola, but okay. Well,
she would
that'll
know.
do. I'm going to keep the volume a little bit lower, and we'll play you out to the United States Marine Band. And why not? It's very patriotic, Greg.
Yeah, it's a flaggy thing,
It is.
It's good. All right, I'll see you Monday. We'll
Very
talk about
good.
what happened on July 4th.
Sure.
Oh, I know. Trump is going to give a 27-hour speech in 114-degree weather because he
That's
says,
right.
I want to show you that I can.
That's what he was telling the Cowboys.
Yeah.
That the Dallas Cowboys, the fake one, or maybe
The fake
fake
ones.
All right, yes, I need to look that up and see who he's speaking to.
Right. Oh, yeah, Connecticut's going to be 102 today, by the way.
Excellent. So you get to
Yeah,
join us.
not so excellent.
I guess not.
Anyway,
Well,
take care and
you, you
stay
too.
cool, and I'll see you Monday.
All right, keep your eye, if you will, on the Grand Old Flag, and then everything should be fine.
Okay. Got
All
it.
right. Very good. Thank you. And we will see you on Monday. And the holiday will be over at that point. And we will have heard the fireworks. By the way, this next clip that Scott has sent seems to be a video and sounds of fireworks. Very loud. Not nearly as many as we're going to hear on Saturday. And this is like one of the commercially available things you can buy from the fireworks stores, or in our case, oh my gosh, I just was thinking about what's happening with this. We sell fireworks around here, not in permanent fireworks stores. I don't know, maybe the law in Virginia must be such that you can't open a permanent brick and mortar fireworks store. You know how states are, or they're weird about this. And then, of course, every state that we have a border with has got a giant fireworks store just over the other side of the border. This was the forerunner of the what now we have this with cannabis dispensaries. And as you know, a dispensary sells cannabis, not marijuana. That's the bad word for it. Anyway, I discovered this. Well, I think I knew this was the case anyway, but I saw it all over the country, and you could really tell when you hit the border. The sign doesn't tell you anything, but or even Google Maps sometimes doesn't know before you find out about it by the ads for the dispensaries. But in the old school East Coast, the fireworks stores serve that purpose. So these are the things you buy from the commercially available fireworks, one of those boxes that you light one fuse and then you're supposed to run away. But a lot of people send themselves to the hospital every year not running away. Then there are others, I guess, who run away and break their ankles and go to the hospital for that. But here in Virginia, they do sell fireworks, but the poor kids or whoever it is who are manning these things, traditionally kids would take these jobs, which actually is stupid and dangerous. But I don't know. Nobody wants these jobs because what they do is they import the fireworks. It's actually quite clever in terms of efficiency. You're importing the fireworks from overseas, largely, I guess, from China, these cheap commercially available ones. And they come in shipping containers because everything does. And the shipping containers are convertible. They have sides that drop down and panels that you can put up. Basically, they drop one of these shipping containers in a parking lot somewhere, a shopping center parking lot, all over the area. And they convert from shipping container to what we now would call pop-up stores, and they just sell it straight out of the shipping container, which we also used to call hijacking, mafia hijacking. Hey, it fell off a truck. And, now they're available cheap. But here, this is like supposed to be, a legitimate thing. And the problem with it is, of course, you're selling during the hottest time of the year, and you're out in a shadeless parking lot in a, circulation-less hot box full of explosives as a kid. So, it seems like a hazardous job. I don't know whether they have any that are now air conditioned. I don't think so. I mean, you have to have the big giant window open so that you can sell and interact with the public. They don't have windows that you slide open and can sit in air conditioned comfort. Anyway, poor guys are sitting out there in 102 degree heat where there's no shade. If we got on the ball and started mandating solar panels over parking lots like they're beginning to do elsewhere, then we'd be in better shape, I guess. But yeah, the rest of the world doing that, and I should be thinking about that too. I've wished we had solar here for a while, but it's kind of a major expense. And it's available here. I mean, I wish we had it here at KITM World Headquarters, and especially if we had solar and a battery pack yesterday, then we would have been much happier, even though the power was out for a good, 7 hours in the end. That would have been a nice treat to have been prepared for. I mean, it's sunny as hell. We might as well have free electricity from the skies and take advantage of that. All right, time to catch up on a couple of other things here and see what we can squeeze in the run-up to the top of the hour break. Most of these things parked over in Instapaper, but definitely a couple of them open as random tabs here. Oh, I know what I could do and should do. I'm trying my best for days now to remind myself to do this. There's just so many things to talk about. But over on the Patreon and sponsorship side, Ken M, we'll just say Ken M, one because the pronunciation of his surname would be in doubt and I'd probably get it wrong, but also because that's the way he signed up on Patreon. Ken, I believe, has been a supporter for some time, but has converted to the annual subscription, which does in fact save you a percentage on the upfront contribution, but joining us at not only annually but at a boosted level. So we absolutely need to make that call. And he's been sitting and waiting for acknowledgement. Well, I don't know if he's been waiting on the edge of his seat for acknowledgement, but I have been waiting for fulfilling my obligation of acknowledgement since May 17th. So apologies for not getting that done sooner, but we appreciate it, Ken. Thank you very much for sticking with us, and many of you might want to think about taking advantage of the annual subscription, or maybe you're crazy and you just want to give away even more money, and you too not only can boost your contribution, but just say, I don't even want savings. I hate savings. It's the worst thing ever. I just want to give all my money, and you have that opportunity. But I think you're more sensible than that. But I appreciate you and Ken and everybody else chipping in. And, what we really need to do one of these days is another big drive for more supporters and more subscriptions. And there are a number of you still out there. The statistics say there's still, something on the order of 1,000 people downloading shows each day, but only about 10% of that number actually subscribing to support the show. And we'd like to motivate the other 90% of you who find the show that interesting that, even if we said 50 cents per day, it would be quite a bankroll and would really help keep us, justify us staying on the air and bringing you these stories and the insights into the news stories that, you just can't get sometimes on your own and can't get elsewhere. But I don't know how else to put it. Get out there, do that, or maybe it's time for us to roll out a T-shirt and be really super aggressive about these things. The T-shirt should say, what the F are you doing listening to other podcasts, or something like that. That'd be a very popular T-shirt. It's not that you can't listen to other podcasts, obviously. They're quite good. So if you've got the time for it, by all means, you can tell me what happens on them, and then we can cover the stories too. It's fun. All right, let's see. Other stories I wanted to get to and see if we can't add a mention of before the break. Now nothing we can add before the break, of course. But definitely want to take a look internationally at the headline over in the New York Times about how the Iran war ignited a clash between Trump and the Saudi crown prince, which is of interest mostly because apparently people who clash with the Saudi crown prince get killed. And that's worrisome. And I'm also a little bit curious in all of this how Qatar, which finds itself under bombardment from Iran for it supporting the United States in their war there, feels about having given him this stupid plane. And you may recall the Qatari royal family had been trying to sell this plane for several years before finally deciding to give it to Trump instead. And it's not entirely clear that they were actually planning on doing that. My recollection is that the story kind of went that Trump said, I heard you've been trying to sell this plane for a long time. Maybe I could turn it into Air Force One. And they said, oh, really? Would you be interested? And he said, yeah, I would be very interested. All you have to do is gift it to me, and then I could keep it afterwards. Like, what happened to the I noticed you were trying to sell it? It's an interesting ploy. I wish I had that skill sometimes. I see this very interesting item you're trying to sell. I'd love to own it. One great way for me to do that would be for you to give it to me. And, what can I tell you? I just don't have it in me to force people to do that. I guess unless you count the subscriptions. Anyway, what an interesting pile of money you have there. What if you gave some portion of it, like we'll say for the sake of argument, $5 to $10 each month to me? I guess it is working. Do I have that talent? A small bit, just a little bit of it. All right, time to take our break. Oh, one other thing we need to cover when we come back. Jared Polis and his genius being borne out in pardoning and freeing Tina Peters. She's totally contrite about the whole thing and will never do it again. She was visiting in the White House with Trump just yesterday. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Yeah, it's true. How do you like this? I'm gonna have to borrow once again from the New York Times. Nobody's favorite paper, but they do cover a wide variety of topics and give us a launching point for mostly for critiquing them. We're allowed to critique them for free in addition to reading their newspaper, either subscribing or finding free articles. And they do have that share function, and we try to use that each day in our roundup that Scott puts together and gives you the links to everything that we read on the air. And Scott also very frequently, thank you, Scott, throws in a couple of articles we didn't read on the air but should have or are related. There's a whole narrative going on in the daily summaries, and I recommend you stop by and check them out from time to time if you haven't. And certainly if you're ever wondering about a story that we read on the air and you wanted a link to it to read for yourself, you will always find them there. We don't include less than we talk about. It's just sometimes we include more. Occasionally I mention something and then in passing and I don't have a link handy, but they're usually things you've heard of by that point anyway. But here, the news that the Colorado governor has made his situation even worse. I mentioned to you that Tina Peters was in the White House visiting with Trump either yesterday or I saw the story that had happened yesterday. No contrition whatsoever that Jared Polis insisted was actually part of his decision-making there. That she had, expressed remorse for her crime, and it was a crime. And even Jared Polis says it was a crime. But Not only has she not actually expressed any remorse, she's essentially insisting that she will do it again because it was the right thing to do, which is a big, big problem. Although she doesn't now occupy an office that permits her to do it, but she may be also convinced that she does not need to occupy that office in order to do it. She can simply break into the Mesa County clerk's office or their storage facility as a civilian and expect to be pardoned for it in the future. So, Jared Polis really not covering himself in glory. I think more of, if he's covering himself in anything, I would imagine it's the sort of Nickelodeon green slime stuff. No, you did the wrong thing. You pardoned the wrong person, and it just pours down on his head. Too bad, because what can I tell you? I mean, somebody put it nicely earlier this morning on Blue Sky, and I think I shared it with everybody too, if I can just find it. Yeah, here we are. Beijing Palmer, who says, man, Polis needs to be studied in a lab as an example of brain cookery. And borrowing from Kyle Clark, the reporter there in Colorado, who does some fantastic TV segments. And I see that he does good self-promotion here. He's a journalist at 9 News Denver and does a great job, or has a team that does a great job putting videos of his commentaries on social media. Let's see. Well, at any rate, the news is well covered here in a format easier used for us, the New York Times. Although it would be great to play Kyle's commentary on the air too. Maybe we'll do that. But in addition to her not expressing any remorse and cozying straight back up to Donald Trump, Polis makes things worse. Colorado governor fires officials who opposed freeing the election denier, Tina Peters. Yep. Governor Jared Polis commuted the sentence of Tina Peters, who tampered with voting machines in an attempt to show that the 2020 election had been rigged against President Trump, unsuccessfully at that. But nonetheless, he pardoned her for reasons unknown. I guess everybody still has to contemplate whether or not Trump, literally has something hanging over his head. Jack Healy wrote the story from Denver for the New York Times. The governor on Wednesday fired 2 members of his clemency board. And I mean, really, why? Well, it explains why. But I mean, the thing is done, right? You overruled them. You granted the clemency. They're unhappy about it. They said as much. So what? The job's done. And to whatever extent you were obligated to do this for Donald Trump, you've done it. He doesn't really, shouldn't be able to demand more from you. So I think this argues in favor of just your brain really is cooked and you are doing this independently for no particular reason. And it's just time for you to retire upstate, I guess. Do they have an upstate or an equivalent of upstate in Colorado? Or, I mean, unless it's like we need you to retire to Wyoming. Like that's the state we would prefer you live in. Anyway, he's fired members of this clemency board after they spoke out against his decision to commute the prison sentence of the election denier Tina Peters. And I mean, why isn't that good for your narrative, Jared? I did it despite the advice of others. I felt so strongly about it. I was so driven ideologically or morally to do this thing. I mean, why do you think Trump, if it's a Trump thing, why wouldn't he appreciate that even more? What does Trump need members of the Clemency Board of Colorado fired for if he's getting what he wants out of the governor? Anyway, the board members, Hannah Siegel Prof and Azra Taslimi, had objected to Mr. Polis's decision in May to release Ms. Peters from prison after pressure from President Trump. And you may remember that Greg told us that the primary in the gubernatorial race, the Democratic gubernatorial primary, the result was current Attorney General of Colorado, who was also highly critical of this clemency move, was elected in a, I guess, shocker over Michael Bennet, currently the senator, the U.S. senator for Colorado. And, I mean, they're both presumably statewide, known quantities and electeds. It's true, but surprisingly, the guy who, actually was involved in the prosecution of Tina Peters as Attorney General, and even if obliquely, I don't think that she was prosecuted by the Attorney General's office, but rather by county prosecutors, but still, and was critical of clemency, magically won this thing. I don't think Bennett was necessarily busy praising the clemency or anything, but it was probably just another nail in the coffin there. After the commutation, Ms. Prof and Ms. Taslimi, these are the two board members from the Clemency Board, revealed that the board, appointed by Mr. Polis, had twice voted unanimously, and I don't know how big the board is, unanimously to reject Ms. Peters' application for a shortened sentence. Mr. Polis, a Democrat, has the final decision and overruled the board. That is unusual, don't you think? Yes, I think so too. That's unusual! And it makes me say, that guy. So, the board normally operates in secret and does not disclose the pardon and commutation recommendations it makes to the governor. I guess that's part of the quiet understanding between them, right? We'll advise you. You appoint us. We advise you. Generally speaking, if we stick to the rules of the game, nobody gets hurt and the beans don't get spilled. But when somebody does something so far out of the ordinary, people want to know what was going on behind the scenes. So, board normally operates in secret, doesn't disclose the pardon and commutation recommendations it makes to the governor. Ms. Prof and Ms. Taslimi said they had been compelled to pierce that veil of secrecy in Ms. Peters' case. I'm curious about their backgrounds. Are they like lawyers, law professors, just generally stand-up people? Are they contributors to Polis? Probably a little bit of both. On Wednesday, they said they had to pay the price. They received a letter from the governor saying they were being dismissed for violating the board's confidentiality standards. Okay, are they actually written down that way? You breached the required duty of confidentiality by publicly divulging board members' votes, Mr. Polis wrote to each of the women who shared the letters with the New York Times. It is interesting, though, that he does not believe either of them deserve clemency for speaking their minds. Remember that he's freeing Ms. Peters because he believes that she should not have been punished for speaking her mind and taking an unpopular political position, whereas he does believe the two members of his clemency board should be fired for doing the same. It's a little weird, but it will gain you nothing, of course, to put that question. You might as well if you're a member of the press and there's nothing else to do and you're asking questions in the governor's office. But he is on his way out, and I assume he's kind of done in Democratic politics generally as a result of this decision, quite honestly. But he may not care. He may not have any more ambitions. Ms. Peters, the former county clerk in conservative western Colorado, had been sentenced to 9 years in prison. Yes, after being convicted in 2024 in a plot to tamper with voting machines under her control in an attempt to show that the 2020 election had been rigged against Mr. Trump. Another one of those stupid plans that basically comes down to, I can prove there was vote rigging by rigging votes. And then, though, when I do, you won't arrest me. You'll hail me as a hero because I've proven that such a thing can happen. Except what you've proven is, of course, that every time such a thing does happen, you get arrested for it and sent to jail, which is exactly what happened. So, I don't know. I'm not certain why they think that's such a powerful argument. But they continue to do it over and over again. Mr. Trump spent months attacking Mr. Polis and demanding that he free Ms. Peters, but Mr. Polis has said that the president's harangues played no part in his commutation decision. That's extremely difficult to believe, and I wouldn't waste any time trying. On Wednesday, Ms. Prof and Ms. Taslimi, and I think I'm wondering whether she's a law professor because her name is Prof. I think that's really what's doing it more than anything else. But, you could imagine that they're prominent in the legal profession if they somehow land on this board. Anyway, we could look it up. Anyway, the two of them both said they had known that they might be removed. The women, who are former public defenders, there we go, now working as lawyers in Denver, said the public had a right to know how the governor's clemency board had grappled with one of the most consequential cases to ever cross its desk. Sure, why not? Still, they said they were disappointed in Mr. Polis. I'll join you. I'll say I'm disappointed in him. I mean, I never had any great belief in him or anything, but he's certainly a disappointing person. He's saying the public doesn't have the right to know that his own advisory board told him no, twice. Ms. Taslimi said he's not protecting a process, he's protecting himself from scrutiny. Good point. Ms. Peters has hardly stayed in the shadows since getting paroled. She has appeared on right-wing podcasts and a conservative Freedom Fest event in Colorado where she continued to promote election conspiracies. This week, she met with Mr. Trump in the Oval Office. Ms. Prof and Ms. Taslimi said they were concerned with how their dismissal would affect the operation of the board, which faces a backlog of hundreds of cases. We spoke up about this because it shows the process punishes people without power and protects the people with it, Ms. Taslimi said. Speaking out has a cost, and here we are. Right. No pardons for you. Eric Maruyama, a spokesman for Mr. Polis, said that the women's decision to discuss the panel's recommendations, quote, threatens the credibility of the board, colors future deliberations by the board, and breaks clearly stated confidentiality policy. Well, that's all perhaps true, but think of all the policies that were broken by Tina Peters breaking into the secure storage location and stealing the computers inside vote tabulation machines. And yet she gets to walk, and the others are given their walking papers. Also, I kind of object to saying, the women's decision to discuss it. Well, the panel members' decision. I mean, they're, prominent personages here. Yes, they're both women. It's true. But okay. On Wednesday, Mr. Polis's office sent out a long list of appointments to state commissions and boards, including 2 new appointees to the Clemency Board to fill spots, quote, occasioned by a vacancy. That, of course, would be him firing them. So, I don't know. Interesting. It might be worth some time, perhaps off the air, and checking out the backgrounds of these 2 board members and seeing what they might have in store. Maybe we'll see one of them or both of them running for office themselves at some point in the near future. I have a feeling they could garner some significant support in Colorado this way. All right. I just thought that was of some interest. Also, as I mentioned, of some interest, this weird clash between Trump and Mr. Bonesaws, which, like I said, I don't recommend, generally speaking. But I say, the president wants to give it a try. They should just go ahead and do so. You never know what this is where this will lead. Okay, let's see. I'll take a look at this story. This, too, a shareable item from the New York Times, which will provide to you free of charge, unlocked article, how the Iran war ignited a clash between President Trump. I just threw in the president there. They just say Trump. And that's interesting that they can do that in their headlines. I guess you got to save space in the headlines. Everywhere else they have to say Mr. Trump or President Trump. Anyway, how the Iran war ignited a clash between Trump and the Saudi Crown Prince. Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman pressed President Trump earlier to cripple Iran. But as Iran asserted its power, the prince urged a ceasefire and is now pursuing his own security priorities, I guess. That's of interest. And I guess we should have expected it. I mean, he kept making the first trip of both of his terms were pilgrimages to Mecca, essentially. Riyadh for him, of course, and dancing around with swords and accepting gold trinkets from the Sauds, the family themselves. The Saud-ish people were forced to pay for as well. Edward Wong wrote the story, and it goes like this. President Trump and his military commanders were in a bind. Ooh, dramatic music. They had announced the start of a new mission to help guide commercial ships through the Strait of Hormuz, which is, of course, totally necessary because it's open, but we also need this thing, which Iran had effectively closed early in the war. U.S. naval and air power would ward off any Iranian attacks during a tentative ceasefire, the commander said. But U.S. Central Command was caught by surprise when officials from Saudi Arabia, Saudish Arabia as we say on the show, said American forces could not use the kingdom's airspace for the mission, which the Pentagon was calling Project Freedom. Bum, ba, bum, 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 bum. You don't have to play that music, but I don't know. I felt compelled. Project Freedom. That's just Hegseth for you, I guess. The Americans had not consulted the Saudis because, who cares, right? No one ever consults the Saudis until they saw you into pieces. That set off a flurry of tense and urgent phone calls between Washington and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, who, remember, thinks he thinks that Jared Kushner thinks that they're best friends. I'm not sure what he thinks, but he should have called Jared. That set off a flurry of tense and urgent phone calls between them. So an outraged Mr. Trump spoke with him on May 4th, the first day of the operation, and on the next 2 days as well. Wow, several phone calls. The U.S. official said. Vice President J.D. Vance talked to the prince. I'm sure he was impressed. On a separate call, as did Steve Witkoff, the special envoy to the Middle East, and Jared Kushner, the guy he actually wants to listen to. Mr. Trump's son-in-law, but only one of his two son-in-laws. The other one's landed a job getting paid by the Kuwaitis the other day, too. Was it Kuwait where he went to the meeting? I think so. Marco Rubio, the other guy at that meeting, the White House National Security Advisor, spoke to his counterpart, but the Crown Prince stood his ground, fearing that the American plan could reignite war. The Trump administration was forced to shut down Project Freedom, amazingly, less than 48 hours after it begun. So just wanted to show you that we're really flexing our muscles internationally. We're respected again. Even Project Freedom lasts less than 48 hours. Project effing Freedom, everybody. We're shutting that one down because a king said you should. And here we are approaching July 4th and, listening to kings. Anyway, they had lost confidence in the administration, and they thought if they let the U.S. use their airspace, they would get hit even harder by Iran. And they're probably right about that, said Hussein Ibish, a scholar of the Arab Gulf States Institute in Washington. But remember that, I guess, unstated in all of this is the relationship was always premised, I think, on, well, you do what we ask you to do, and we'll prevent Iran from hitting you with any bombs and drones. We'll keep you safe. We'll protect you. We'll intercept all these things. And, of course, it was obvious on its face. And if it wasn't then, it's obvious now in the face of the actual experience of the war. No, you won't be able to do that. You won't keep us safe. You may never have been able to do it in the first place, but you certainly have demonstrated that you either can't or won't, and that effectively either one is bad. So we're just not doing the thing anymore where we give you the airspace. If we give you airspace, you're supposed to keep it inviolate. If you can't do that, why am I giving you the airspace? I mean, I think that's pretty practical. I'm taking the side to the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia. What's going on? The all-hands campaign by the White House to sway Prince Mohammed, which has not previously been reported, and as far as I know has not previously been accomplished, and other crucial moments during the war revealed American and Saudi-ish officials became increasingly at odds over how to approach security in the region, particularly with regard to Iran and Israel. And, those are two kind of big points in that agenda. And more, the Saudis see the U.S. government as unreliable and even on occasion a risk to Gulf Arab nations. Well, I can't fault their vision. Since the United States and Israel attacked Iran on February 28th, Saudi Arabia has tried to chart a middle course to protect its interests. So they're doing great with their moderate approach, too. It gave military and diplomatic support to the United States and was attacked by Iran. But the kingdom has also opposed Mr. Trump at critical moments, flexing its muscles when it sensed greater dangers resulting from American and Israeli aggression. As Mr. Trump tries to navigate diplomacy with Iran, good luck, with a focus on Tehran's nuclear program, Saudi Arabia continues to carry out its own initiatives, because it is, after all, Saudi-ish only. It belongs to the Sauds, so they have their own initiatives. And they're veering away from American priorities and moving to strengthen ties with other nations. I would recommend Ukraine, if you're worried about drones. That includes Pakistan and China, which is also interesting and is meant to make us jealous, I guess, which helped broker a diplomatic opening between the kingdom and Iran in 2023. The Saudi-ish foreign minister is visiting China this week, probably to pick up some fireworks. because of that opening, Saudish officials are speaking directly to their Iranian counterparts about Iran's control of the strait, missile arsenal, and support for regional militias, all of which the Saudish leadership, considers to be a bigger threat than the nuclear issue. Prince Mohammed has carried out the balancing act all year. He laid out the risks of war to Mr. Trump before the conflict started, then later urged the American president to continue the fighting to destroy the Iranian government. According to people briefed by U.S. officials, Saudi Arabia has denied this. They have to. The country is Saudish. But as Iranian power persisted, Prince Mohammed pushed for a settlement. The kingdom, along with the United Arab Emirates, launched secret retaliatory attacks against Iran at one point in the war. Did you know that? No, you didn't. It was secret. Prince Mohammed, however, was not as enthusiastic about escalation as the Emirati leader, said current and former U.S. officials. That is interesting. At the same time, Prince Mohammed was more aggressive than his counterparts in Qatar and Oman, who act as diplomatic brokers between the United States and Iran. Now, as the Trump administration tries to reach agreements with Iran that go beyond the preliminary ceasefire accord, that is doing a lot of heavy lifting to call it an accord, announced on June 14th, Saudi Arabia and other Gulf Arab nations are pressing for an outcome that would shield them from fallout, not literal nuclear fallout, but the metaphorical fallout, if Iran, Israel, or the United States restart broad hostilities. And come on, everybody knows that they will. The weekend is coming. Given Mr. Trump's vacillations during the war, the Saudi question, whether the Americans would offer any protection or exercise any, I would say, sound judgment in the future, conflict. The Saudi-ish, again, became skeptical of Mr. Trump in 2019. It's been a while, when he refused to retaliate against Iran for a drone and missile attack on Saudi oil fields. Yeah, and it might have raised some questions in their mind. We start a big fight, then get bored and walk away, Mr. Ibish said. It's like Lucy and the football. Boy, they really understand American culture very well. Lucy and the football. They're feeling like Charlie Brown on the ground. Anna Kelly, White House spokeswoman, said Mr. Trump has a, quote, great relationship with Saudi Arabia. President Trump listens to a variety of opinions on any particular issue, and he takes seriously the input of our regional partners, she said. No, he doesn't. Ultimately, he makes all the decisions based on what is best for the American people and our national security. No one believes that, of course. But he can be motivated with bribes, so why not get on the stick and start bribing him? I think the real problem here is the Saudish are realizing, or I guess the Sauds, we can just say that, are realizing that you just have to keep bribing the guy and it's getting too expensive and it would be cheaper to try another alternative, I guess, at this point. But they thought, all right, we understand the bribery game, we'll do it. And then they realized he's a faithless partner in these bribes. He'll do the thing you want, the immediate thing that you pay him for, but everything else is transactional. He's never going to look back and do you a favor based on goodwill. He will ask you to do a favor based on goodwill if he's ever done anything to generate goodwill with you, but he doesn't do it. It doesn't operate that way in the other direction. And I'm sure they're getting tired of having the prices jacked up every time they need to bribe him for something. The Saudish Foreign Ministry did not reply to a request for comment. Aspects of the U.S.-Saudish partnership remain strong, though. The two governments have been talking for months about how to start a civilian nuclear program in the kingdom after an agreement they reached last year, a U.S. official said. And as you know, they need nothing more than alternatives to oil there in Saudi Arabia. The Trump administration could soon present a plan to Congress, though some American lawmakers and Israeli officials fear the Crown Prince could try to develop nuclear weapons. I can't believe it. How could that possibly arise from a civilian nuclear program? It's exactly what we fear in Iran, and it's exactly what we should have mentioned they were thinking of doing a couple of paragraphs ago where was it? Where the Saudis, or the Sauds, the actual owners of the country, saying that they really feared other things. Their support for militias in other Gulf Arab states and Middle Eastern states more than they feared the development of a Iranian nuclear weapon. And the subtext of that is, well, we don't take seriously the threat of Iran using a nuclear weapon against us because, wink, wink, we'll retaliate. But you don't have nuclear, except, part of the deal that they're looking forward to is our helping them build a civilian nuclear industry in a petrostate. Which, sure, we're totally doing it for electrical generating purposes and not for the purposes of the grand prize for all of the Middle East, getting your own nuclear weapon, which the Iranians have demonstrated quite clearly would be a good idea if you ever fall out with the United States. So anyway, a couple paragraphs later we find out, oh yeah, we're doing that for them too, even though we now fear the Crown Prince could try to develop nuclear weapons. Trump, I'm sure, telling Netanyahu, don't worry, he's my friend. Hi, it's me, David. I mostly do the commercials around here too. Have you ever thought you'd like to do a show like this one, but a lot shorter? Maybe without necessarily waking up early each day or even, let's say, working at it each day? Well, now you can, sort of, and by now, I mean pretty much any time you want, because what I'm talking about is you recording a news story, sharing an essay, or otherwise contributing your thoughts on these crazy times with the rest of us, and with any digital recording device. Make the show your own, as I like to say. Send me a digital file of your recording, a link to any source material, and a note about how you'd like to be identified on the air at KagroX, that's KAGROX, at gmail.com, and I'll take it from there. Don't worry about those ums and ahs either. I sure don't, but I'll even do my best to edit your submission down into a nice-sounding dispatch from the field. So come on, everybody, make the show your own. Help me prove once and for all that I'm not just imagining this audience. All right, welcome back to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. We continue with this read of this international tensions with the Saudi Arabians and Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Mr. Bonesaws himself, over the Iran war. It's all very interesting and lots of subtext that I guess we have to parse for ourselves here. And as much as I dislike political coverage, American domestic political coverage, and the way it's handled in the New York Times, they do give us the hints that we need, if you're reading critically, to parse what's going on, both in domestic politics and international politics. And they're not completely valueless, I must say. And although lots of people are angry with them and withholding their subscription money, I still find that it's worth spending the time parsing. Well, one subscription won't kill them. The rest of you can do it, and don't worry about it. You won't miss out on anything. So we'll give them a very small fraction of what they used to get in subscriptions this way. And you still won't miss out on what there is of value from their reporting. All right. So where were we? Washington and Riyadh are also discussing how to build up overland routes that bypass the Strait of Hormuz. That's still on the table. And Saudi Arabia remains by far the biggest buyer of American weapons. And I guess that really tells you what you need to know. In both of Mr. Trump's terms, Saudi Arabia was his first major overseas trip. And credit to former Obama administration staffer Jesse Lee on that one for calling it for years and years and years. Mark my words, something really, I forget how he put it, but something really terrible is at the heart of this fealty to Saudi Arabia. But anyway, Mr. Kushner maintains close ties with Prince Mohammed and travels to Riyadh often, despite having no government role. Let me say that again. No government role. 4 years ago, Mr. Kushner got a $2 billion investment from a fund led by the Crown Prince. Yet Mr. Trump mocked Prince Mohammed in public during the war. I guess he probably took that really well. In March, Mr. Trump talked in disparaging terms about how he thought the prince had underestimated him and his administration. He didn't think he'd be kissing my ass. Wow, Mr. Trump said at an investment forum in Miami that Saudi Arabia had organized. There are other signs of tension. Wow, I don't know why. I mean, he gets away with it because they're like, well, it's really worth chopping up the president of the United States. It's just going to be very troublesome. And we do buy a lot of our weapons from them. I could see losing access to those weapons if we murdered and mutilated the president of the United States. I just think that's got to be off the table, right? Okay. That's a very sensible decision. You should keep making that decision. It's just annoying. Anyway, there are other signs of tension. When Mr. Rubio, who is also the Secretary of State, that's a way of putting it. He's also the Secretary of State, in case you didn't know, visited the Persian Gulf last week. He skipped Saudi Arabia while stopping by for meetings in Bahrain, Kuwait, and the Emirates. An arch rival. I'm like, what is an archival? No, an arch rival of the kingdom, the Emirates. Yeah, sort of, although I thought the storyline used to be that MBS and MBZ were pals too. And you had to know they were pals because they were both MBs. And then they just differed on the last initial. I don't know. But that was a theme for a while. And that Jared was pals with both. I don't know how much I'd read into Marco Rubio not going to Saudi Arabia on this particular trip, if only because what appears to have been the point of the trip was getting Tiffany Trump's husband set up with a slush fund from the Middle East, right? That's how Trump takes care of his family. Like, his boys have access to his money. He needs to make sure, I guess, in his view, that his daughters are covered. And as a, family values traditionalist, that means making sure that their husbands make plenty of money, because no reason to think women could do it. So anyway, Jared Kushner gets set up with his contacts in slush fund, chiefly funded, I guess, by the Saudis, although I had understood that he had gotten some of that money from elsewhere too. But anyway, this trip was about setting up, I don't even remember the guy's name who married Tiffany. I think it's Michael something, and I don't remember his last name, but he also has his own Middle East ties. But, that doesn't mean you can get millions, billions of dollars out of the royal families just because you live there and are already wealthy. Trump has to help you muscle that money out of them. So Jared's taken care of. Tiffany's husband doesn't have a gig, so Marco Rubio goes to visit with the other states that might still have money to slop on the Trump family, and mysteriously brings this person. Not only, it's not just Jared Kushner with no government role who's having these meetings. We're bringing another son-in-law who has no government role to these meetings, just so that you get comfortable with the idea that you're going to be paying this guy. If you want to see his face, here he is. Now give him some damn money so that I can have both of my sons-in-law taken care of. All right. I think that's probably got more to do with their choice of itinerary than any sort of snub to the kingdom of Saudi Arabia. In Bahrain on Thursday, diplomats from the Gulf Arab nations met with Mr. Rubio to voice their concerns about regional security. And he said, yeah, blah, blah, blah. This is the guy you got to give money to. The Saudish foreign minister, who is, of course, Saud himself, Prince Faisal bin Farhan, also spoke one-on-one with the secretary. That would be Rubio, of course. This alliance was put to the test on recent events, Mr. Rubio said at the group meeting, and it has passed. You all passed our test. Isn't that something? Meaning that the level of cooperation, the level of interaction, the level of friendship that existed among us during these trying times was put to the test, and it passed with flying colors. That is some explanation, Marco. Tell me again what happened here. I mean, does everybody see what he did? The alliance was put to the test by recent events, and it's passed. Great. What does that mean? Well, it means that the level of cooperation, interaction, and friendship that existed during these trying times was put to the test, and it passed. with flying colors. That he just said, what does that mean? It means what I said, I guess, and nothing. I mean, that's, I guess, tautology, right? He just says, well, it was put to the test and it passed with flying colors. How do you know? Well, because it was put to the test and it passed with flying colors. Let's dispense with the not believing that it was put to the test and passed with flying colors on account of I need you to believe that it was put to the test and passed with flying colors. That is just a super dumb statement of a par for the course for Marco Rubio. That's just where we are. While Saudi Arabia is relieved by the ceasefire, if it is one, and it is one for now until 4:30 on Friday. None of the most, is it 4:30 that they ring their bell and close, or 4 o'clock? I have to, for some reason I have it in my head as 4:30, but maybe. Anyway, while Saudi Arabia is relieved by the ceasefire in the time being, none of the most difficult issues emerging from the war have been dispelled. Dispelled, that's a Rubio thing, by the preliminary agreement. For one thing, the agreement recognizes that Iran has some form of control over the strait and allows for it and Oman to agree to a method of administration which could include charging tolls or fees in the long term. The moment Iran closed the Strait of Hormuz, the whole psychology of the Gulf changed, said Michael Ratney, a career diplomat who was the U.S. ambassador to the kingdom before he retired at the start of the second Trump administration. Now Iran has this sword of Damocles that they can hold over the Gulf economy and the global economy. Well, they always had that, of course, and you knew that, I assume, if you were a career diplomat. The preliminary document also says nothing about Iran's ballistic missiles and its support for militias, which is, really the whole ball game here as far as the interests of the Gulf states are concerned. And it was central about 10 seconds ago to the United States position as well. So it's just, interesting that there's nothing about it in the document. And that's because these guys don't know how to write documents and they don't care. And it's unclear whether the Trump administration will be able to get Iran to enter a nuclear agreement. In 2018, Mr. Trump, as you know, withdrew from an Obama-era deal that Iran had been abiding by, which prompted Iranian leaders to enrich uranium at two higher levels. In public, the Saudis have praised, and the Sauds probably too, praised Mr. Trump's memorandum of understanding with Iran, because what else are they going to do, which laid the foundation for the ceasefire. Which isn't a ceasefire and isn't a foundation, but those are the things you have to say when you don't want to, spark a war. Another one. I think it's incredibly important and very significant that we have an MOU that will hopefully put an end to this conflict and, more importantly, open a pathway toward resolving many of the outstanding issues. Prince Faisal, the foreign minister, said on June 18th at a forum in Vienna. Primary among them, of course, is the nuclear issue. Except earlier it wasn't. But Saudi officials are adopting a wait-and-see approach on outcomes of the agreement, outcomes of the agreement, not from, but of the agreement. For one thing, they have not committed any funds to rebuilding Iran, which the agreement calls for from America and its regional partners. And I think that's actually a very interesting aspect to the situation, too. I think it's been reported on before. It's interesting that they don't refer to that reporting. But, yeah, this idea that also, once again, not only not including Israel in any of the negotiations and then saying, Israel, you actually have to change your foreign policy, your war policy immediately in Lebanon because we said you would, and that, rarely works. You guys need, the rest of you, the Saudi Arabians, every time we come to you and say, can you give us a couple $1 billion for my son-in-law? You say yes. Well, can you give us a couple $1 billion now to invest in Iran because for some reason we agreed to pay war reparations to them? And they say, no, we're not going to do that. That's dumb to begin with, and you didn't ask us. Yeah, but could you do it anyway? Probably not. It's just not likely to happen. So that's another thing, right? Like here, this is the Board of Peace of Iran reparations. We're going to declare a Board of Peace. Remember how dumb the Board of Peace is. And remember, I got another story about that. Maybe we'll go there next. Remember that originated as a solution for Gaza. We're going to create a Board of Peace. What a dumb name, but we're going to create it. And it's going to govern Gaza. I mean, this is actually a step toward the really freaky and bizarre proposition that the United States would take literal ownership of Gaza in the aftermath of the war. Once it's all settled, we'll just take it, like Greenland, and we're going to make it beautiful, like we did with the reflecting pool, and we're just going to own it and run it. Well, what the hell are you talking about? I don't know exactly, but it'll all be okay because we'll have billions of dollars behind it. It will? How? We'll charge people $1 billion to join the Board of Peace. And apparently they did, but every single one of them was Mel Brooks. And they said, we'll be on the Board of Peace and give you $1 billion, except for the part about where we give you $1 billion. Now, you might worry that you'll be kicked off the Board of Peace, but who cares? It's not going to do anything. And 2, Trump will forget. And 3, if he starts kicking everybody off the Board of Peace, everybody's going to know that the Board of Peace didn't get any of the money and he didn't make a great deal. Now, of course, here with the war reparations, the $300, billion, million, I don't even know, billion, I guess, $300 billion, you can't really do too much with $300 million in rebuilding funds and reparations to the Iranians. Well, we're not going to pay for that. It's going to be the regional partners because I can just squeeze them for money anytime. Look, I got my dummy son-in-law $2 billion, and he's an idiot, and he's not doing anything with it. These are countries, and I'm the president. I can certainly squeeze $300 billion out of several of the states, right? Right. Just like the Board of Peace, no one's paying. Mel Brooks strikes again. Meanwhile, I do have, gosh, there's so much. Another article I'm reminded of, which I got to scroll for a little bit here in order to try and find it, and I don't know that I will. No, and that's not even it. That's not it. There's an awful lot. There we are. The Guardian reporting the other day on the latest on the Board of Peace, which still exists despite it all. Trump's Board of Peace, in case you were wondering, in addition to, not collecting any money, what other ridiculous things did they say they're granting themselves? Like, we're going to own Gaza. Yeah? I mean, I don't know if you can just declare that. Well, anyway, Trump's Board of Peace also plans to grant itself sweeping immunity. Trump's new favorite thing, of course, immunity. The Supreme Court says I had it. Yeah, well, it's not the Supreme Court of Gaza. Well, yes, it is, because Gaza is American now. Trump's Board of Peace plans to grant itself sweeping immunity, documents show. I mean, they wrote it down and said so. That doesn't mean it's really going to work that way, but I guess we need to make ourselves aware of this. Kate Brown and Aram Ralston wrote this piece on the 27th of the last month for The Guardian. The subheader says, draft resolution, so it's just a draft, seeks to shield board members and security forces from potential prosecution for work in Gaza. An interesting notion, probably not something that they really should be talking about at these early stages, because what does it do? It makes people say, what do you expect to be prosecuted for, actually? I thought you were trying to make everything awesome in Gaza. And I mean, I know your plan for it is dumb, but I mean, who did you think was going to prosecute you for your, quote, work in Gaza? That is an interesting question. And, all right, well, I don't know what the answer is. It's illustrated by a photo of the Board of Peace from February, and there's a whole bunch of people, and each one of them was totally going to give them $1 billion, and guess what? None of them did it. I don't know. Seems a little weird. The UN-sanctioned Board of Peace, and that may mean something else later in its history. Yeah, it's been sanctioned by the UN again in the bad way. Boy, anybody trying to learn English with this, oh my gosh, they've been sanctioned by the UN. No, this is actually the positive kind of sanctioning, even though it's a negative overall. The UN sanctioned, I forgot about that aspect of it, Board of Peace announced by Donald Trump earlier this year to rule Gaza, seriously, is planning a sweeping grant of legal immunity for itself. And by the way, I don't even think that's the most outrageous of the things that are revealed in this article, so hang on. That, according to a draft of the resolution obtained by The Guardian. The draft language would also let the organization, here's the part I didn't like, obtain public property in Gaza quote, free of charge. I mean, what kind of peace is this for Gaza? Well, the Israelis are rolling in and killing all of us and stealing our land. Yes, well, we can solve that with a board of peace that will steal your land. Oh, so much better. I can see why you call it the board of peace. So this is the I guess is supposed to be the legal justification. What do you mean America owns Gaza? Well, it might not be that we're making Gaza American, but we are going to have Americans steal all the property there. And I told you that right at the outset. We were going to build beautiful seaside resorts all over Gaza. It could be beautiful destination for honeymoon or for cheating on your wife with porn stars or any of these things that people love to do. And increasingly, as my daughter Ivanka, the genius, says, they are increasingly manifesting this way of life and telling us this is the way they want to live. So we're going to build it. Now, how do you do that? Well, you build a beautiful hotel. Sure, but I mean, how do you get the property in order to build a beautiful hotel? Well, the Israelis will kill everybody who lives there, and then we will give ourselves the property. I love that they add free of charge too. I'm a businessman. I make great deals. You certainly do. How much did you pay for this property? $0. It used to be I would have had to pay, I don't know, I'm going to guess $1 billion for this property. But instead of paying $1 billion, what about if I paid $0? And as a matter of fact, the thing that really bothers me is I didn't think ahead. I should have made Gazans pay me to take the property. That was very foolish of me. But sometimes I'm very generous. That's it. Immunity plus free land. What else is there? What else? Wow, we have a Palestinian Wren outside who is protesting. And you're right to do so, sir, or ma'am, as the case may be. Wow, it's kind of futile, and futile, I guess, but futile in that, like, well, we're conquering this place, so now the land is ours, and there's nothing you can do about it. And we have immunity, too. If you think it's illegal for us to steal your land, you're wrong. You might be right, but you can't prosecute us, because that also is in the paper. Even though, I don't know. It's not official or anything. This is just a wish list at this point. I guess we should remind everybody of that. The 4-page resolution. And honestly, if you're writing a wish list, I could do 4 pages. They're pretty easy, but I probably wouldn't stop. Most of mine, by the way, include free pizza. That's just sort of the thing I include in everything. It's in my contract writer. I've never won a contract with it, but, I do like pizza. The 4-page resolution, labeled sensitive but unclassified, extends broad protections to every member of the Board of Peace and its administrative affiliate, the Office of the High Representative. And boy, do you have to be high to think you're going to get away with this one. That's the OHR, they're calling it, as well as to the Palestinian technocrats, international military forces, and non-resident contractors lined up to perform work in Gaza. So everybody, the international military forces, the Israelis who kill everybody so that we can take the land, immunity. Palestinian technocrats, people who agree to turn the electricity on after we take the land, you too will have immunity. But don't, and if you're worried about being labeled as a collaborator, we'll give you asylum in the United States. Ha ha ha, yoink, rug pull, you're going back. It defines legal processes from which they would have immunity as any arrest, detention, or legal proceedings in the courts or other entities in Gaza. By the way, it's the other entities you got to look out for. They might not recognize your immunity. I'm just thinking out loud here. It is unclear if the document is attempting to relieve the Board of Peace and its affiliates from prosecution in international courts. How is that unclear? In addition to potential claims in Gaza, I see. Well, there's no Gaza courts left, so I think they're aiming at international courts. And if it's unclear, I guess they'll add it later. The Board of Peace's chair, Donald Trump, would have the right to waive someone's legal immunity. If you didn't give me more money, or I don't like you, or you break with me, you'll be executed. Pending majority support from his peace board, the June 2006 draft resolution states. So that's the check on him. He can revoke your immunity, but the board can overrule him. But he can also revoke the board's immunity and or have Mr. Bonesaw chop them up, except Mr. Bonesaw might be more interested in chopping him up. I don't know how this is going to come out. It's very confusing. The 7-member, quote, executive board that leads the Board of Peace. Did you know that the Board of Peace isn't the board? The executive board is the board. It includes, you'll never guess, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, and I guess eventually his other son-in-law, too. Special Envoy Steve Witkoff, the President's Chief of Staff, Susie Wiles, and his National Security Advisor, Marco Rubio, who, we were reminded by the other article, is also Secretary of State. Though countries have pledged billions, most have not yet transferred funds to support its work in Gaza, and no major contracts have been issued. Not to say that it won't happen later, but anyway, I just thought, very interesting. I guess that's the way to do it. If you're writing the rules, maybe one of the rules should be, I'm in charge of the rules. Thank you very much. I mean, I'll be in charge of them later. Obviously, I'm in charge of them now, or I wouldn't be writing this memo. The White House referred questions to the Board of Peace, which is totally separate from the White House, of course, except if you look at the Board of Peace again, remember, it's Trump, Jared Kushner, Steve Witkoff, Susie Wiles, and Marco Rubio. Oh, no, I can't answer this question. You're asking the wrong entity. You need to ask the Board of Peace. The Board of Peace did not answer specific questions about the draft resolution, but an official said in a statement, there is no operative resolution or immunity framework of the kind described in your questions. Any suggestion that this process is designed to create lawlessness or impunity is wrong, misleading, and gets the entire issue entirely backwards. Okay, but I also have no answers about what do we mean by it being backwards. How is it frontwards? Could you explain that to me? No, you'll have to ask the Board of Peace. Oh, you're the Board of Peace. I'm asking you. Oh, well, then you should ask the White House. The official added that the suggestion that the president will have a role in establishing or waiving immunity in Gaza is categorically false, and that the board will ensure all personnel, contractors, and participating entities follow applicable law, whatever that may be, and operate under clear rules, oversight, and accountability mechanisms. Just gaslight. Just say that those are the things people want to hear, right? We'll operate that way. Your document says you won't. Well, there's no document. It's this document right here. Document schmocument. Now, you don't know what you're talking about. You're categorically wrong. The official did not explain what the oversight and accountability would be, because they don't know. Nikolai Mladenov, a Bulgarian diplomat serving as the Board of Peace's High Representative for Gaza, now we know who the high guy is, has been meeting in Cairo this week with Palestinian administrators selected by the Board of Peace to govern Gaza. Good luck. The discussions have focused on refining the framework for the group's work in the territory. According to one person familiar with the agenda, the prospective immunity resolution titled Resolution Number 2026/3 has not been shared with the Palestinian cohort, the person said. So I'm sure they won't be viewed as collaborators and murdered by Hamas at any point in the near future. No external oversight is the next section, and we're running out of time, but I think you can guess what the gist of it is. 6 lawyers specializing in U.S. contracting law and international armed conflict, this is some combination, reviewed the draft resolution for The Guardian. If the resolution goes into force, they said, it is unclear how Board of Peace officials, soldiers, contractors, etc., would be held accountable if there are shootings, that's what soldiers might do, or accidents that affect Gaza residents, that may happen with contractors, or even how the group might resolve routine disputes over business or land use there. If it's free, who's going to have a bill of sale to prove that they own it? Answer, anybody and or nobody. U.S.-led reconstruction efforts in Iraq and Afghanistan were often plagued by controversies of corruption or cases of civilian deaths or abuse at the hands of American contractors, including those working for Blackwater, like, Graham Plattner, and KBR, who have since faced litigation in U.S. courts. Any reconstruction effort in Gaza could face similar challenges. It looks like an attempt to exempt the board. I mean, yeah, it's what it says. But we do know that sometimes words don't mean what they say. So it looks like an attempt to exempt the board and all of its personnel from accountability for potential legal violations, said Emily Schaefer Omer Man. That's a lot of names. Omer Man, that's the last name, an expert in litigating international humanitarian laws in Israeli, American, and foreign courts. That's what you're looking for. Several lawyers, including Omer Man, pointed to the specific risks associated with Section 7 of the draft resolution entitled Third-Party Liability/Claims, which lay out a system for the Board of Peace to consider and adjudicate any claims for property loss or damage and for personal injury, illness, or death arising from its work in Gaza. They are basically saying there's no external oversight, including applicable international law regarding occupation, said Noura Erakat, I'm not certain how you would pronounce it, an international law professor at Rutgers University. It's creating a legal system unto itself. Contractors have also pressed for clarity about the legal protections afforded for potential work in Gaza. Time for us to leave here. But where the Trump-backed Peace Board has solicited bids for rubble removal, security work, and a vast reconstruction effort envisaged there, Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, has described transforming the coastal territory into a site of luxury resorts, high-tech cities, and regional business hubs, like he's trying to do in Albania as well, right? Laws governing international contractors and military forces are usually outlined in status of force agreements between countries, but there's no such document for Gaza. American contractors can be subject to U.S. law for certain crimes, even if they operate overseas. But of course, you can get pardoned for that. I would think any company would want a very clear legal framework, said Doug Brooks, President Emeritus of the International Stability Operations Association. Wow, I didn't even know there was such an association. There are liabilities issues any serious American company would want to be clear about. Israeli officials don't want to negotiate a status of force agreement in Gaza because Israel doesn't want to recognize Gaza as a state, one American security contractor said. It's pretty important for political and legal cover and insurance, the contractor said. It gives the people of Gaza, who cares, they say, clarity and comfort, sure, around how they'll be treated and dealt with by contractors that they may engage with. I doubt very much whether anybody in Gaza believes they're going to get that from any contract with us, or anyone for that matter.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
All right, time for us, of course, to hand things over now to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Let's see what stops on his list today. The dissenting MAGA justices to the birthright citizenship case brought, quote, a political and racial ideology in search of a history that's not there. And it never is it? All right, we'll see you tomorrow.